Good evening, Council. May I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Deputy Cabral, Councillor Garwood, that the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater on February 15th, 2023 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Council, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? And seeing none. Before we do that, we will rise for our national anthem.
True faith, love, in all the sons come with hope, with hearts we see the true strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God will lead our land, glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. Council, may I have a mover and seconder to call the public meeting to order? Councillors Garwood and Fisher, that the public meeting of council held under section 34 of the Planning Act for applications ZB 2022-014 and ZB 2022-017 be called to order at 6:32 p.m. All right, welcome. This is the public meeting of Springwater Township Council held in compliance with section 34 of the Planning Act to give the public an opportunity to express their views in regard to the proposed amendments to the Township of Springwater's zoning bylaw as amended. The first part of this meeting is to present the amendment. Following, the public will be given an opportunity to make oral submissions through the Zoom application or in person. Any person wishing to make an oral submission is to have notified the township prior to 8:30 a.m. this morning and had been added to the commenters list. If a person or public body who files an appeal of decision of the Township of Springwater is in respect of the zoning bylaw amendment, does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or written submissions to the Township of Springwater before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss all or any parts of the appeal. All comments or questions should be addressed through the chair. Oral submissions will be given in this meeting's minutes as part of the public record, including the name, address of the speaker as information collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The minutes of the meeting will be posted to the township website. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates which notice has been given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 26th day of January 2023 to the owners of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 9 properties in the Township of Springwater within 240 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location that was visible from Floss Road 4 East. The notice was also placed on the township website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of the public meeting?
Correspondence was received from the Ministry of Transportation in an email dated January 26, 2023, from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority in an email dated January 27th, 2023, from Rama First Nations in an email dated January 27th, 2023, and from Enbridge in an email dated February 13th, 2023. All correspondence can be found attached to this evening's agenda.
Thank you. I will now call upon Stefan of Planscape Incorporated to give a presentation outlining the purpose and effect of the proposal.
Good evening. I don't think I can turn on my video. There we go.
And there you are.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council and staff and the public. My name is Stefan Sherbach from Planscape Inc., 104 Kimberley Avenue in Bracebridge, P1L 1Z8. Members of council, the application in front of you this evening is a condition of consent to sever a surplus farm dwelling at the subject lands. The severance was conditionally approved by your Committee of Adjustment a few months back. And the application in front of you is to fulfill a condition to ensure that the property conforms to your official plan and zoning bylaw. Again, as it's a condition of approval, the staff report in front of you is well written, does a very thorough policy analysis. I've reviewed it and agree with Mr. Russell's analysis, and I also agree with their recommendation. And I would respectfully request council's consideration with this to fulfill this condition and eventually finalize the severance. I'm available for any questions that you may have. Thank you for the time this evening.
Thank you. I will now call upon our moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There are no members of the public who have registered to make oral submission for this application.
Thank you. Are there any members of the gallery who wish to have comment or question? Finally, are there any members of council who have any comment or question? And Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I guess my only question here is this just vacant property, or is this have any structures on it?
Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor. Yes, both properties do have structures. The severance is, in fact, severing off the surplus farm dwelling. There's a farm consolidation that is occurring, and the severed lands, subject to the special exception. I believe there's a dwelling, there's a new one under construction, and several of the accessory structures have been removed, and several are recognized and form part of the lot itself.
Thank you.
Not seeing any more. Thank you to all who participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing interest in the matter. Next, we have ZB 2022-017 by P. Mercer of 1922 Penetanguishene Road. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates to which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 26th day of January 2023 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 13 properties in the township of Springwater within 240 meters of the area to which the proposed amendments would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location that was visible from Penetanguishene Road. The notice was also placed on the township's website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of the public meeting?
Correspondence was received from the Ministry of Transportation in an email dated January 26, 2023, from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority in an email dated January 27th, 2023, from Rama First Nations in an email dated January 27th, 2023, from resident Sherry Lynn Burrow of 1940 Penetanguishene Road in 2 emails dated January 30th and February 13th, 2023, from Enbridge in an email dated February 13th, 2023, and from the County of Simcoe in an email dated February 14th, 2023. And all correspondence can be found attached to this evening's agenda.
Thank you. I now call upon Paul Mercer to give a presentation outlining the purpose and effect of the proposal.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share what we're trying to accomplish here with the property. So we are at 1922 Penetanguishene Road. Bear with me 2 seconds. I'm going to share a screen with you here. Is that coming through on your end?
It is, thank you.
Thank you so much. So just quickly, we are looking for an amendment to the zoning for a couple of buildings. One would be a carriage house, which would be the residence of my mother and father that are looking to move here onto the property with us. So that would be in this general area here of the property. So this is our main residence here. This is, of course, Penetanguishene Road. The other amendment that we are looking for, the other building proposal, is a small greenhouse. We like to garden, my wife and I, and would like to be able to start our plants early here. So we're just looking for a greenhouse here on the property. So that's the site plan. This is the overhead shot that, of course, came from the Simcoe Township of Simcoe website here with the property outline. The buildings are proposed here in yellow, so considerably away from the road. Definitely be the setbacks that that Simcoe Township is looking for. And again, the other building here is significantly off the property lines in every direction there, so there's no real challenge there. This would be the proposed building that we're looking for the carriage house. It's about 1,000 square feet on the second floor for the apartment, the ability for mom and dad to put their car underneath, and then the ability for them to, if approved, obviously with the drawings to the city for building permits, to have a little bit of an outdoor patio up top here. The greenhouse, just a pretty straightforward greenhouse. We don't have anything developed at this point or designed, but something in this kind of shape and size would probably do very well for what we're looking for. Just a place where we can go in and start some plants for the year. So just a quick shot of where the signage was from the road, if there was any concerns as to where that was located. Again, if you look at our property outline here, we are completely surrounded in trees. So that signage would have been right here by our driveway. So it was pretty clear as to where that would have been marking which property was in for amendments. All right. And I know there was a couple of concerns raised. One was with regards to the laneway. There always has been an access here. Again, if you see in the tree line, there was access to the property here that's been there for forever. There's a really old gate that's there. That's, of course, all grown into the overgrowth, but laneway here. The good thing about this particular laneway that we would like to propose using is that this is at the top of the hill. Our driveway is actually at the bottom of the hill, which makes it very difficult for us to get in safely in the driveway. You've got to really make sure that you're watching up the road to see if there's any traffic coming, because there is a knoll right here where this is at the top of the hill. So you're able to see into that little gully that would be up the road here, and certainly down into the road as well here. So those are kind of the concerns. What the greenhouse would be looked after or used for would be just our own personal use. And I know there's also been some concerns over weddings on the property. Yes, we have been blessed with 3 kids of our own and 3 that we have adopted. They are all at marrying age. So we have 2 that are married off. One got married on the property this past September. And of course, as you can see here, we've applied for all the permits as required, went through all the inspections and all that kind of thing. There's also another wedding coming up this year, which is pretty exciting for us. So that'll be another one coming up for this year. So any weddings that we would be having on the property would certainly be to obtain permits associated with a family wedding. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding these applications.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There are no members of the public who have registered to make oral submission for this application.
Thank you. And Mr. Mercer, if I can just ask that you do take your presentation down so I can see the rest of council again. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
And thank you. Are there any members of the gallery who would like to ask or have comment? Not seeing any. Do any members of council wish to have any comment or question regarding the application? Deputy Mayor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to Mr. Mercer. Mr. Mercer, what other structures are on the property presently now besides the house itself?
There are two buildings. One is a dry shed that's been here for I think since the house was built. And there is another shed that we applied for permits for back in 2020. That has basically been completed. Just have to get the final inspection for that. It's a Quonset hut type structure.
Follow on, Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Mr. Mercer, could you provide maybe roughly the square footage for the Quonset type building that's on site there?
Absolutely, yes. It's about 700 square feet. So between the two buildings, we were just under kind of the allotment for the accessory buildings between the drive shed and the Quonset hut.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, are there any additional questions? Not seeing any. Thank you to all who participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and showing interest in the matter. Council, may I have a mover and seconder to adjourn the public meeting? Deputy Cabral, Councillor Garwood, that this public meeting of council held under section 34 of the Planning Act for applications ZB 2022-014 and ZB 2022-017 does now adjourn at 6:46 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Council, may I have a mover and seconder to approve the report regarding ZB 2022-014 S Dunn 1546 Floss Road 4 East. Councillors Moore and Alexander, that the report from the senior planner regarding ZB 2022-014 dated February 15th be received, and that subject to the comments received at the public meeting, a bylaw be submitted to council for consideration for approval on February 15th, 2023. Are there any questions on this? All those in favor? And that has carried. And again, may I have a mover and seconder to refer ZB 2022-017 Mercer 1922 Penetanguishene Road. That council having held, a public meeting in accordance with section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 P13 as amended on zoning bylaw amendment ZB 2022-017 by P&L Mercer, having noted correspondence and input be received, and that the application be referred back to staff. And again, a mover and seconder on that, Deputy Cabral and Councillor Moore. Are there any questions, council? And seeing none, all those in favor? And that has carried. I will now call upon Greg Davidson to present the delegation regarding the Elmvale District High School request for funds for youth exchange program in Nunavut. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'd like to introduce Owen, Lily, and Hunter, the three students who are going to be attending our exchange trip to Toliara, Nunavut. I believe we have the presentation here, so if we could have a next slide, please.
My goals on the exchange is to make better connections or just connections in general with people across, peoples across Canada, and to better my team building skills.
One of my goals is to give the kids a good experience here since they haven't really had a good opportunity like this before.
One of my goals is to see how different it is up there compared down here and what opportunities they have up there. Next slide, please.
in a public high school, it's very important, or public school, it's important for your programs to be accessible. I would like council to know that all transportation between Elmvale to Tullerock is taken care of by Experiences Canada, an agency of Heritage Canada. So this includes bus transportation to Pearson, an overnight, a flight to Edmonton, in which we were going to be staying overnight in a hotel. And then following morning, quite early, we'll be flying up to Yellowknife, changing flights, and then going to Joe Haven, Tullerock, Kilgore, and then Tullerock. It's about 70 degrees north. When we're up there, our guests will be taking, or our twins will be taking care of us. So things like ice fishing on the Arctic Ocean, 7 feet of ice. And there's a possibility of participating in a seal hunt, making traditional dress, meeting elders and council. You know, it's quite an experience to meet somebody who in 1950 grew up on the land, right? This is the experiences. This is the type of thing we're going to be having there. It's Elmvale's responsibility when our twins visit us, and which is going to take place. We go in Maple Syrup Saturday, actually, is when we leave. When they come here on the Sunday of the Victoria Day weekend, it's our job to host these students. And our costs for hosting range upwards of $20,000. This includes supply teachers, busing, entrance fees for the various activities that we engage in. And I want you to know, council, that this will be our 6th exchange, -1, which was canceled due to the pandemic. And the community has been very, very supportive, but council's previous support for exchanges to Cambridge Bay, James Smith First Nation, and Haynes Junction, Yukon, have really helped us show the kids what's going on here in Southern Ontario, our culture and heritage. We need to have the perception within the school that this doesn't cost a lot of money. Like immediately we say, go to the Arctic, that sounds like money. We have asked our parents this year and in previous years for $250 because we are able to raise the money to make it so. We hope with your support that we can continue to keep this accessible to our existing students and future students, and certainly have the perception that this is an accessible program. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we have discussion, I just need to have a mover and seconder to. Oh, there you are. Sorry. When you said thank you, I thought you were done, Greg.
I was done, but I think we have some students here. Oh, I think we covered the transportation.
No, yeah.
I think we covered that. So
Yeah, next slide.
it gives you an idea of where we're going. Yeah.
So, EDHS's exchange program is asking the council for about $2,000 from the Springwater Swing Funds to help host the Inuit students from Nunavut in our community. Oh, next slide,
yeah.
please. Thank you.
Any questions?
Wait,
You might have-
do you want me to receive it before questions? Procedurally, I just need to receive your delegation, then we can ask you questions. So may I have a mover and seconder to receive the delegation from Greg Davidson, Councilors Garwood and Deputy Cabral, that the delegation from Greg Davidson, Elmvale District High School regarding the request for funds for the youth exchange program to Nunavut be received. And at this time, are there any questions on this delegation? You always go first. Deputy Mayor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Obviously, I've been here before and it was quite interesting to hear what the students had experienced. I do have a question with regards to the missed opportunity there when you didn't go that particular year. And if I'm not mistaken, I think council did provide funding for that. I don't know if the funding was utilized, or my understanding is it might have been held in trust. I don't know. Can you maybe bring us up to speed on that, Mr. Davidson? Maybe maybe you don't know that the funds might still be available to you.
Oh, no, I'm very, I do know, absolutely.
Okay,
So all funds raised, including the $2,000 from the Spring Waters Swing Fund, have been held in trust by the school. And will be put towards this exchange.
okay, so I guess what I'm asking is that the money that you're asking for? Are you asking for
We're
additional
asking,
funding?
yeah, so there's been a significant change in expenses with regards to this program, especially surrounding busing. So because it's quite extraordinary. We're seeing amounts almost like double what we're used to. So it's that alone is quite a burden. The funds raised was at $10,000, so approximately $10,000, and our budget is $20,000. So we have $10,000 to go.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and through yourself to Mr. Davidson. First of all, I just wanted to mention that I think this is a fantastic opportunity. I'm as you know, proud EDHS grad myself. Not necessarily a question per se, but I did want to indicate to council that I would like to see us approve this donation in the amount of $2,000 for Elmville District High School's student exchange program with the funds provided from the Springwater Swing golf tournament. Thank you.
Thank you. And there will be an amendment at that time. We need a seconder for that, but is there any other comments or questions from council for them? Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I certainly would like to see council continue with the program. However, as I recall, I think the ask last time was not $2,000. I might be mistaken. I think council actually upped it to $2,000. So I would ask that Director Radigan might be able to bring us up to speed on what our donations have been in the past, so that, you know, we're kind of on the same page as far as what the donation amount should be this time going forward.
Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Deputy Mayor Cabral. I don't have those figures in front of me, but I do believe they do range between $1,000 to $2,000 in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. And to the members, thank you very much for being here. And the previous, no, I'm not, this is just a comment. Oh, George. It was just I have a comment as well, and then I will go back to, previously the groups, once they, or what, at one time it was actually while they were here, came and did a presentation. We got to meet some people and there was lots of slideshows and we kind of got to live vicariously through you guys in that. So I would definitely love to see that again, because it's incredibly interesting and what an amazing opportunity you guys have. So I will turn back over to Councillor Garwood.
Mayor Coughlin, would I be able to add something?
Absolutely.
I think council would be interested to know that Lucy from the MP for Nunavut was in the community of Toliok recently, and my teacher colleague, who is the organizer up there, met with the MP, and the MP said, okay, explain the exchange. So they're coming to Southern Ontario to our community for a week. They're going to then board a bus and go up to Ottawa, and it's primarily to research college and university programs. They're going to stop by Jordan College also. And when the MP found that out, she said, "You're bringing Inuit kids to Ottawa?" And Katarina said, "Yes." And she said, "I'm going to contact the Governor General because these are Inuit kids, and I think Mary Simon would like to meet them." So I think what we're hoping is to present more than just our week. With regards to the activities up there, or present not just the activities up there, but also here. And maybe there's a little icing on the cake where our twins are able to send us some pictures of them meeting with Governor General Mary Simon, who all of you know is Inuit heritage. So
Thank you. Thank you for adding that.
mm.
Councillor Garwood? Oh, and I sorry, Director Radigan does have the report. Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I do have the amounts from 2017 onwards of what has been paid to EDHS. In 2017, we did pay 2,000. There were two different exchanges. So one was for the Nunavut exchange and the other one was the Yukon exchange. 2019, we paid $1,000 for the Saskatchewan exchange. And in 2020, there was a pond inlet exchange, which we paid $2,000 to.
Thank you,
Thank
Director Radigan. Counselor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Director Radigan beat me to it. I was going to provide the numbers as well. So thank you, Director Radigan.
Mhm. And Counselor Garwood, do you have a seconder for your amendment? Lots of volunteers to say yes to you. That's good news. Do you guys want to arm wrestle and then, no, all right. Counselor Alexander, second. To have for the 2000. I will reread the motion as amended. So the delegation from Craig Davidson at Elmville District High School regarding the request funds in the amount of 2,000. Right? No? Oh, I need to vote on the amendment, right? Okay. Council, we will vote on the amendment to have the $2,000 included and approved. All those in favor? And that has carried, and we will go back to the main motion as amended, that the delegation from Craig Davidson of Elmville District High School regarding the request for funds for the youth exchange program to none of it be received, and that council endorse $2,000. All those in favor? And that has carried. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank
This
you.
is very exciting.
Very much. Yes. We're going to. Chairs. These two stay here.
I will now call upon President Dave Ritchie to present the delegation regarding the County of Simcoe Federation of Agriculture introduction. We would also like to note that this is Canada's Agriculture Day, so I don't know if you coordinated that with our staff, but well done and welcome.
Well, good evening and thank you, your worship. And yes, we did coordinate it, Canada Ag Day. We're proud of it. With me tonight, we have my first vice president, Colin Elliott, which is a farmer here in Springwater. And we've got Paul Maurice, who's the OSFA's district representative and a farmer in Tiny. I guess a little forward about Simcoe County Federation. For some of you may not know, we've been here in the County of Simcoe. This is our 83rd year. We run or have been an advocate for agricultural issues, local, municipal and provincial and federal. And it's been an ongoing project of ours. Now, some of the things that we do or have done in the past few years is we support the local 4-H clubs. We have bursaries for the kids for the further education that go on to agriculture education in our area. And we also have workshops like Keep Kids Safe that we had to shut down due to COVID. We lost a couple of events like Keep Kids Safe. Now I'm happy to say that it's back on stream again this year. We're going to be over at Huron Tractor on the 15th of April. So if you know of any of the kids of age, it's a safety program that our people have put together, our volunteers. We're made up of 10 directors. We have 1,560 members across the whole of the county within our boundaries. And we also support a lot of the food banks. Locally, over the years, we've give to some of the smaller food banks, Elmville in particular. 8 of them this year. We're going to be giving out as we speak. It's going to roll out. We have a check presentation tomorrow in Alliston to some of the smaller food banks that maybe are not linked to the big food banks that need the extra help and that are doing a tremendous job. We've also had when we had Farmer Feed Cities exercise, it was an outreach program training. We used to have it at the Agplex down in Essa. That got shut down because of COVID, but we changed gears and we hired a videographer and we've done videos now and we will see some. And I think Mayor Coghlan's already seen a glimpse and Deputy Mayor Tuesday. We're going to have them available or are available now. The videographer, we spent the money on that because we couldn't, so that teachers could access this. They could click on our website and get a download and pick out 10 different parts of agriculture in Simcoe here. Now, I guess the big thing is, what does agriculture mean in Simcoe County? Which surprised me, as within our borders in Simcoe, we manage or cultivate or stewardship, if you want to call it, over 500,000 acres within our borders. And we grow everything and do everything from vegetables in the south end, potatoes, corn, wheat, beans, livestock, feathers. We've got it all. And even now we've got some wineries. We've got Berry Hill Farm just up over the hill here. So Simcoe County is really blessed with a lot of things. There's nothing really we don't have. So with all of those acres, we generate $1.1 billion of economic activity within our borders. 1 in 8 jobs comes from us. So when you see a green tractor, a red tractor, a yellow tractor, whatever, running down the road, holding you up and making you mad, there's a reason for it. So I'm going to get, I guess this is our tech person, if she wants to move to the next slide. So I've explained what we have here, what agriculture means. Now I'm going to ask her to play the video now, if you would. And it's a 3-minute clip, and you're going to recognize some of the people in this. So,
this is a farm that was
okay.
north of Wyvale. There's 130 acres here and 250 across on the other side of the road. We rotate the crops every year, corn, soybeans, and wheat. It helps with the disease resistance. The weed control is better. You try to get away with as little a spray as possible.
So her dad is QB, so her dad's a quarterback. And her mom is 16B, who is Rita. We affectionately call her Rita, so this one's called Baby Rita. Her number's 4J.
Can I ask that we just pause the video until we get the volume? Thank you.
Did you rev it up a bit? This is Lori Chalmers, I believe. She does the beef section of it. Okay.
We're going to try again here.
Okay. We got a glitch.
Come on, girls. Come see me. Hello, pretty girls.
There's always things to be learned, and a great resource to work with your associations, people in the community that are in your industry and in other industries.
So as a horticultural farmer here in Simcoe County, one of the most important programs is the Seasonal Agricultural Worker Program. These workers you see behind me have anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 years experience coming back to my farm.
When we buy land, you want the sandy loam land, but you also want it near a reliable water source. So whether it be a river or a stream nearby. The Simcoe County area has been good to us.
This machine is multifunctional. It does a little bit of everything. In 3 passes, it will mow, spray, fertilize. It has the ability to prune trees, fumigate, cut Christmas trees.
We really appreciate that people take the time and the effort to track down their favorite maple syrup supplier, their favorite vegetable supplier, and go to the farm or go to the farmer's market. So it just goes around and around. People support us, we support local businesses, and away we go.
We have the luxury of having Georgian Bay not too far from us, and that provides us with a little bit more moisture and a little bit more heat too as well. We have excellent land here. There's good good amount of topsoil and good soil too. And it's an excellent place to farm.
I'm a farmer right down to my core. There's no doubt about it. I love farming and I love the cows and the crop and all the rest of it. That can really inspire and motivate you to get up in the morning.
I told you to recognize some of them, Ross and David. I believe David's a candidate for your Ag Liaison Committee. He has been there before. He also been very active with us and whatnot. And I compliment council for having such a committee in this municipality. It's becoming more and more of a necessity for you to be able to keep up to what we're talking about and for you to understand what we do. I think these people here, Johnny Williams, for example, we all know the Elmville Syrup Festival. Big player in that. He's a director secretary for the Ontario Maple Syrup Producers, neighbor of mine actually. And John's a real big player. As I said the other day, him and his wife make over 1,000 butter tarts for the Butter Tart Festival in Midland during the summer months. Sweetwater Harvest is coming up here in the next month, and he's part of that too. It's the same as the guys in out on the 8th in Malone. We've got the Elmville Syrup Festival, I think, coming off. I haven't seen a date on it right now. And thing is with that, believe it or not, from what I'm told, it's become probably one of the largest in the province, somewhere between 180 or 190 vendors. Elmira used to be the king, and it's still good, don't get me wrong, but it's not as big as Elmville. And it's the one for us. So I guess what I'm trying to promote here is, first of all, we're a resource through the Federation of Agriculture for people like you. We have member service reps through Paul and the Ontario Federation. We have a whole group of people, researchers, planners and stuff that help us keep ahead of the watching the legislation that's coming down. I know Bill 23 has given a lot of questions to a lot of people, and for some of it we agree, but I think what we're trying to promote is build smart, build up, not out, build around, not over, and do things to conserve. Just a week or so ago, we were at a workshop or a market outlook for grains. The US has hit the ceiling for the lack of land down there due to urban sprawl, due to drought. They're short of 14 million acres this year. And we're moving close in that area. We hear out in the East Coast, Cape PEI, and are short of land. And what we're saying here is, let's do this right. And months and weeks to come, we've been working very tightly with the county back last year on mapping and stuff when you were doing the MCR. So what we're doing is keeping ahead of this. So if there's any questions, any things you want to do or need to know through your Ag Liaison Committee or us, who we all work together, we'll be glad to help you. So these people here are our community, and it's what we need to keep our community strong and safe. So with that, I thank council for your time. And if there's any questions, I'll try and you can bounce some of them off me.
All right.
So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. I'm just going to get this on the table and then I'll ask questions, ask for questions this time. So council, may I have a mover and seconder to get it on the floor, please? Councillor Thompson and Moore, that the delegation from Dave Ritchie, President of Simcoe County Federation of Agriculture, regarding an introduction to council be received. Are there any questions at this time or comments? I have a quick question.
Sure.
Last year we were talking about the Federation looking for a home still. Have you guys moved forward in any direction for that?
No, we haven't. I guess the thing, your worship, was having meeting spaces. And we've sort of been using some of the office space at the county. Like with COVID, it opened the door to Zoom meetings. And in bad weather or whatnot, it's a lot more convenient to go online and do a safer and a whole bunch of reasons. But yeah, that's what we were hoping to find. We were hoping with the county, they're building a new building that we have discussed with the county staff, that we could have a room designated, and not just the Federation. There's all kinds of, there's Women's Institute, there's beef, there's dairy, there's a whole bunch of rural communities of all kinds, all committees that haven't got meeting space. And that's a big thing. We used to have the White Pine Room just across the road here. Well, the ministry's kind of closed down and there's a whole bunch of issues with it, so that's fine. But it still leaves us out in the cold. So for the time being, we've made do. The county's hours are limited, so there's only certain times or days that you can go in and out of there. So that's the limitations we've been facing. But for the time being, we've been using Zoom meetings and the county office is inside there. So
I appreciate that. And for the rest of the benefit of council, as soon as I heard that during one of our other meetings, I was like, well, we happen to be building a large building in the middle of Simcoe. So
I know we talked
hopefully
about
we can keep that on the table. And
how is it going? If I might ask.
Not on the agenda this evening, so I don't know that I can speak to it, but
Good
I'm hoping that
question.
we can keep you apprised as we continue to move forward. Thank you very much. Council, are there any other questions? All right, all those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you very much again for your time. I will now call upon Director Spagnell and Planner Belcourt to present the delegation regarding the potential municipal surplus lands presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just waiting for Planner Belcourt just to bring the presentation up on the screen. And there it is. Mayor Coughlin, members of council, staff was directed quite some time ago to start moving through the process of preparing what would be considered to be a municipal surplus lands inventory. Over the course of a number of years, staff have been looking through looking at various files, looking at M plans, looking at mapping and whatnot to put together what would be considered to be a land inventory of all of the municipalities' properties, with the exception of road allowances, unopened road allowances. You'll see in the slide that there was a resolution passed at C-455-2016 that provides a direction to staff to create that inventory for the purposes of possibly setting up the lands for potential sale. As part of that process, there also needed to be a policy framework to outline what the procedures would be in surplusing these lands and preparing them for sale. That was completed by the clerk's department and approved by council on December 21st, 2022. Out of the reviews that were completed by staff, there were multiple departments that had to provide input into draft mapping as it related to the purpose of properties and actually provided input into the nuances that were associated with some of those properties. Next slide, please, Planner Belcourt. As a result of those reviews, there were a total of 309 properties identified. The review process included iOS, included the clerk's department, included planning, included building to a certain degree, and as I mentioned, the clerk's department. The purpose of the inventory, it wouldn't necessarily just serve as an inventory for surplusing lands. This mapping can also be used as an account to provide information related to facilities such as stormwater management ponds and their location, trails, other facilities and land holdings that the municipality holds that can be utilized as an information source for other types of reviews. Of the 309 pieces of land, staff have identified 23 parcels or blocks that could potentially be considered for surplusing. Next slide, please, Planner Belcourt. These locations are scattered throughout the, these parcels and blocks are scattered throughout the municipalities. Some of them are remnant blocks that are located like the one is shown on the screen for two Horn Street, which on face value, they look like that would be an easy conveyance and an easy surplus to possibly sell to that property owner. But like many things today, things aren't as simple as they look. And what tends to happen is there's a requirement and a need to take a deeper dive to look at the legalities behind surplusing land. A deeper dive to take a look at what the purpose of these blocks are in order to better inform council before they be slated for possible surplusing. Just to give you an idea, there are park spaces within the municipality that are zoned R1. For example, there's one on Marnie Lane. There's been park equipment that has been there for quite some time. And again, at face value, you would think that that is an easy parcel to surplus and potentially sell. However, what would need to go into those types of considerations are title searches, reviews of subdivision agreements to see what the terms were for that potential property, for that property. And of course, getting the direction of council as to whether or not staff is authorized to move forward and do the necessary searches to provide council with the information to possibly surplus properties. So I think from staff's perspective, the inventory is there. We are in council's hands. We can do a deeper dive and provide an overview of individual properties, or we can have a more in-depth discussion at a later date to pinpoint certain properties that may be more available for surplusing. So staff are in council's hands. The one thing I'd like to point out, as far as the mapping that's included with this report, you'll notice that there is the key map, or sorry, the main map that shows the aerial photo. And then you'll also notice to the right, there are two other little maps that show the designation for the subject properties or blocks and the zoning. Those are key identifiers into what the existing land use is for those particular blocks and parcels. And through a deeper dive, there will need to be discussion as to what may need to occur. For example, on some properties, if a rezoning is required or a redesignation, or simply put, if council wants to surplus certain properties and potential purchasers would have to go through the process. Those are the types of discussions that would have to happen. But at bare minimum, at least the inventory has been completed based on the hard work and the great work that Planner Belcourt has done in working through these maps for council's consideration. I'm open to any questions that council may have, and I would ask if Planner Belcourt has anything to add, then I would invite her at your discretion, Mayor Coughlin. Thank you.
Planner Belcourt, I'll wait for your camera to come on.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Can you see me? I think my camera's on.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I don't have anything to add really to what Francis said. I just might point out that with the map you saw earlier, I can scroll back to it, with all 309 properties, that was based on an MPAC search. So as Brent mentioned, there may be things that need to be sorted out through title search or not assessed perfectly. So again, that 309 is an approximate number based on that MPAC search, but still a lot of properties that we went through.
Thank you, Planner Belcourt. And I do want to say thank you again to staff. I think that this was something that I've been maybe pestering for 5 years now. So thank you very much for all the hard work that's gone into it. I do think it's very important that we do know exactly what we have in our inventory. And again, there might be opportunities whereby we heard tonight for infilling and for other opportunities where we don't have to continue to grow in an outward position. We can continue to fill in what we already have. So are there any questions or comments on this report from members? And seeing as this is an information report, that should council wish to have a further discussion at a later date, we can defer this to that date. So if there was a mover and seconder for that, we could defer. First, I will accept the presentation, then we will read the motion. Got it. All right, so We will accept the presentation. May I have a mover and seconder to receive the delegation from Director Spagnol and Planner Belcourt? Councillors Garwood and Deputy Cabral, that the presentation from Director Spagnol, Director of Planning Services, and Brianna Belcourt, Planner regarding potential surplus lands be received. Council, is there any comment or redirection at this time? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. No? Okay. All those in favor? And that has carried. And moving on to question period. And question period. Are the Clerk Ainsworth, have there been any submissions for question period this evening?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There haven't been no submissions this evening.
And unless we have our two fans that want to ask any other questions, I don't see anybody else in the gallery. So we will move on now to our minutes. May I have a mover and seconder to approve the minutes of council? Cabral and Thompson, that the minutes of council listed herein be approved as presented. 1, the minutes of the regular meeting of council of February 1st, 2023, and 2, the minutes of the special meeting of council 2023-2024 budget of February 2nd, 2023. Are there any questions on the minutes? And seeing none, all in favor? And that has carried. May I have a mover and seconder to receive the minutes of boards and committees and organizations? Councillor Garwood and Councillor Alexander, that the minutes of boards and committees and other organizations listed herein be received for information. Draft minutes of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Board meeting of January 27, 2023. Draft minutes of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Board meeting of January 27, 2023. Minutes of the Springwater Public Library Board meeting of October 18th, 2022. And minutes of the Springwater Public Library Board meeting of November 15th, 2022. Are there any questions on these minutes? And seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. May I have a mover and a seconder to approve the action reports? Councillors Garwood and Councillors Alexander. At this time, council, do you want to pull any items for separation? Councillor Fisher? 9.2.
Sorry, item 9.2.
So at 9.2 be pulled. Council, is there any other comments or questions on items 9.3 or 9.4? Councillor Thompson.
9.3.
And it's a question, Councillor, or
It's a question.
question? Go ahead, please.
So this is through you. I could ask the question now. Okay, through you, Mayor Coughlin to CEO Smith, just a couple of questions. This is for the approval of the asset management plan. Number one, I assume, I understand it was a staffing challenge that caused this report to be late, and that staffing challenge has been resolved.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Councillor Thompson. That is correct. The staffing matter has been dealt with.
Supplementary question to CEO Smith. Is that okay?
Go ahead, please.
I also understand that Springwater Township did not miss any provincial funding because this report was late. And just another question, because other municipalities that had this report on time, was there any municipalities that did get funding that we perhaps didn't?
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Councillor Thompson. To my knowledge, Councillor Thompson, the township has not been, there's been no negative impact to the township, if you will, with respect to grants and or funding. To my knowledge, I'm not aware that any other municipality has received, again, any additional funding regarding this. I believe, an asset management plan, and Director Radican can maybe help me here. Usually when you apply for funding applications now, there is a requirement to satisfy that you have an asset management plan and it has been approved by council. So as we move forward and we look at applying for different funding applications, if we don't have this in place, we will likely not receive funding.
Thank you, CEO Schmidt. Any other questions on that? And then Councillor Fisher, 9.2, is it question or redirection?
Just a question actually regarding the bylaw approval of the non-union management salary pay grid. Maybe I misunderstood before. Were we not to discuss this at a later date? Or are we putting it in the budget as it sits now?
Thank you, CEO Schmidt. If you could speak to the timelines on that.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and through you to Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fisher, my understanding that the budget, was tabled on January 16th. And as part of the tabling of the budget within the motion, there was discussion or there was a part of the motion included the non-union management salary grid. And I believe the motion read something along the lines of that it be considered and forwarded to the February 1st meeting, which obviously we made some changes to the timing of the budget. Further to that, I believe Director Radican did a presentation on January 20th, which we had a full day of budget deliberation. As part of her presentation, there was some discussion. I believe council had probably half an hour, 45 minutes discussion with staff going over the non-union salary management grid. After that meeting, or in that meeting, there was no further direction provided to staff. Subsequent to that, my understanding is on February 2nd on the agenda, there was a motion that council considered and provided direction to staff that the non-union management salary grid bylaw be considered this evening on February 15th. And so here we are this evening for council's consideration for this bylaw.
So the 3.91 increase that we're looking at right now, just to confirm, that is including the non-union salary grid that sits, correct?
CEO Schmidt or Director Radigan?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Fisher, yes, the 3.91% does include the non-union management salary grid.
Councillor Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I know that I spoke of this outside of today's meeting, and I was under the impression, maybe incorrectly so, that there would be further dialogue and discussion on the non-union staff pay grid. I would actually like to see this here item. And it's not that I'm against, a pay scale appropriate to staff. I just struggle with the way that the pay grid is developed. And I would like to see the possibility of an alternative method for recognizing staff and pay increases rather than reach out to a consultant, which basically, in my way of thinking, we basically paid a consultant to be the bargaining unit for the non-union staff. I think I would like to see staff come back with other options on how we can move forward with a pay scale and a step that would reflect pay increases as opposed to just reaching back a number of years down the road and creating a whole new pay grid. I would suggest that that's not going to be happening with our unionized staff, that there will be some bargaining coming forward for future negotiations. And I'm wondering if there might be other options, such as a non-union bargaining unit that would be able to bargain with council in the future for pay increases. It's not that I'm necessarily opposed to the pay grid in principle. I just kind of seems like a snake eating its own head from what I've viewed. And I find it hard to relate to the manner in which the pay grid was formulated, just based on my own prior experience and working life. So I guess for me, I would like to make a motion that be deferred to a subsequent meeting for further discussion, and that possibly a report from staff outlining possible other options for pay negotiations for non-union staff be brought forward so that council can address it in a more forthright manner than simply accepting the pay grid as it is. And we only took it on for 1 year, so I would even be amicable at that time if we decided to proceed with a pay grid going forward for an additional 12-month period. However, I would like to see it deferred from here this evening, and I would be asking for that to be an amendment.
Then we would need to pull this and receive the other two to have further discussion on that. So at this time, council, I'm going to ask, do I already have a mover and seconder for these? I do. So this would be that action reports 9.3 and 9.4, the approval of the 2022 asset management plan, and subsequently the Springwater Development Corporation road naming request for 1256 Wilson Drive. And just making sure that there's nothing more on 9.3 and 9.4. All those in favor? And that has carried. All right. So at this time, I would need a mover and seconder to put 9.2 back on the table. Councillors Fisher and Deputy Mayor Cabral. And I don't need to read that again, so we can further the conversation at this time. So it's back on the table. So Deputy Cabral, from what I'm hearing is you want to not include the pay grid as part of approving the budget.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Since it's already included in the 3.9%, what I guess I'm asking is for us to defer adopting the pay grid to another meeting, and that staff look at other potential options for negotiating non-union salaries and steps, as opposed to the current practice where we've reached out to a consultant. I think it would be a little bit more to, well, basically residents, as well as possibly council and staff alike, if it were negotiated in a similar fashion to how many other organizations have non-salary staff, yet they still have a bargaining committee that speaks to management or the directors in order to adopt a benefit package. So that's what my amendment would be, is that that particular section be removed and deferred to another date for further discussion, and that staff provide potential other options to utilize to develop a pay grade, pay step scale, however you want to phrase it, moving forward.
Are there any other comments or questions? I do have comment on that. So thank you, Deputy Cabral. That's right. Oh, a seconder. I thought we had that. It was Fisher and Cabral. Oh, for an amendment on that. So Deputy Cabral is putting forward an amendment to have the non-union management salary grid be removed and for consideration at a later date. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Moore? Just comment on that. So my question would then be maybe to CEO Schmidt, or what would be in place then if we don't have this grid in place now? How do we, the way I'm looking at it is if council wants to have a discussion about making a change to the way we operate through that, that's something that can happen through a notice of motion and at a later date. But if we remove this as part of the budget, but we're still incorporating the costs associated with it as part of the budget percentage, how do we move forward with the budget and not with this portion of it? CEO Schmidt or anybody?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. We'll try to unpack it, I guess. So if I hear it correctly from the Deputy Mayor, he would like to not necessarily remove the funds that are currently in the 3.91% as it relates to the non-union salary grid, and essentially have a further discussion in the future to discuss other potential options as it relates to non-union wages. So, you know, council could consider passing the budget tonight at a 3.91%. There would just be monies, if you will, or funds within that 3.91% that are we taxing the taxpayer more than what we need to? I guess would be my question, in the sense of if council's not in agreement with it. Let me rephrase this. Is it the grid or is it the COLA that we're talking about? Is it the concern the grid itself or COLA? Because there are two elements. And that's maybe my first question that maybe I'll pose back to council if I can.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I think with respect to the COLA, we've already adopted it for the unionized staff, and we did have substantial discussion on that. I will admit that most of the discussion focused on the COLA during our budgetary meetings. The actual pay grid itself and the numbers that were in effect on that pay grid really was not discussed at any great length. So the COLA portion, I don't have an issue with that. I'm just looking for a way for us to move forward with a pay grid that is being developed at the municipal level through some type of negotiation between non-union staff and council. And some of the considerations that we've heard in the past is that some people get to that top pay band, and then, you know, there's no more incentive for them. But I guess the difficulty I have with that is that in most areas, be you a plumber or a master electrician, you finally get to that stage where you're basically at the top of your game, and then it would be pay increases based on negotiated pay increases, much like we're going to be doing with our unionized staff. So I would like to see something along those lines happen, so that rather than you know, looking to a consultant every X number of years, to have staff actually approach us much in the similar fashion as union will be now and negotiate a pay increase, or negotiate a merit pay after someone has been in that top band for 5 years. I mean, that's how a lot of other industry and other areas of work operate, whereas the pay grid that we have now seems to be something that is forever going to be evolving and being presented again and again and again. So I guess the issue I have is with the pay grid itself, the way it's currently formulated. And that I just see that in 3 or 4 years or 5 years down the road, it'll be the same thing happening again, where we're going to spend a lot of money on a consultant to then turn around and tell us, basically as a bargaining agent, what we should be paying our non-union staff. And I think we should be able to resolve that in-house between council and non-union staff directly.
Thank you. And as a follow-on to that, CEO Schmidt, aside from our pay equity consultant that we did have come in to provide us with advice on how to make our grid more equitable, what type of common, or I guess best practice, does the municipality have in-house to ensure that our pay grid remains competitive, our pay grid remains equitable amongst other municipalities or like other public entities, but also that we remain attractive and as a place that people want to work? How do we take an annual internal look at this, or I'm assuming that we just don't ignore it and every 5 years hire a consultant? CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Coughlin, to members of council. So if I can back up a bit, maybe. So understanding that back in 2021, when the review was conducted, to my knowledge, a review had never been conducted, a fulsome review had never been conducted for probably 10 plus years for the township. And so the direction at the time was to review our current pay grid. And again, we've had a pay grid since 1994, and probably prior to that. And most municipalities have, most that I'm aware of, have pay grids. So it is common practice in the municipal world to have pay grids. So again, the review is conducted because a fulsome review had not been done for quite some time. And through that review, it was, to your point, to ensure that we were pay equity compliant, which this grid that council did approve for 2022 is pay equity compliant. And so that's the first thing. The other portion of it is to ensure that we compare ourselves to other municipalities. I believe there was 11 municipalities that were conducted as part of the study, to ensure that we have similar jobs in different municipalities and we're paying at roughly the same rate as those individuals. So again, from a competitiveness perspective, as well as a fair and equitable process, and being transparent as well, we're making sure that we are comparable to other municipalities. And whether we pay at the 50% or we pay at the 60% or we pay at the 40% is really ultimately council's decision. Council at the time directed us to move through the process to ensure that we were at the 50th percentile, so no better than, not at the top range, but not at the low range as well, to remain competitive. And again, I think I mentioned during the January 20th meeting, again, it's also to ensure that there is fairness and equity, fairness, and it's equitable and it's transparent, where again, in the private sector, you can hire somebody for $100,000 a year if you want and get them to do X job. And you can hire somebody else to do the same job for $75,000 if you want. And that's really up to you as a private business owner. In the municipal world, that's not the case. If you have an individual that, is I don't know, I'll pick a position, a bylaw officer, let's say, again, no matter who that individual is, as long as they have the experience and the qualifications, they fall within a certain pay grid or pay band within that grid. So it ranges from X dollars starting range to Y dollars ending range being the 50th percentile. So some staff do come in here that don't have all of the experience and or education per se. And we're in a position whereby we either allow them to come in at a step 1 and work their way up to job rate, which is step 5. And once they reach step 5, essentially they've reached their job. That's the rate that the job pays in the market. And the only way that rate changes is essentially every year council determines whether or not there's a cost of living adjustment. And so that position this year, again, anybody that at step 5 in their pay band essentially is at the top or at their job rate, which is what would be paid in the marketplace based on our review. And the only way they would get an increase beyond that is to essentially, if council was to provide them with a cost of living adjustment. The comments about negotiating for non-union, I think that's a slippery slope. You're opening up now a conversation where we already have a union. We're likely going to have another union then, if you want to walk that path of negotiating. And I'm just being blunt with you. Again, that's likely where this is going to go. And if the council's fine with that, then that's fine too. But just understand that typically the process has been that council did have a policy whereby cost of living adjustment since 2008, I believe it was, or can't remember the actual date, to be honest with you. Council did pass a resolution whereby cost of living adjustment, their formula was that we took a look at the consumer price index for the last 12 months, and we took the average of that CPI, and that was what the proposed COLA would be in each budget. And then council would have the opportunity to determine whether they agree with that or not. And in some cases over the years, council has not agreed with that cost of living adjustment, and it has been less in some cases. And that's where you get into some challenges whereby if you're not keeping pace with cost of living adjustments in the area in Simcoe County per se, that's where you will see, you'll start to see where we're not remaining competitive with the rest of our municipalities, where we may slip below the 50th percentile. And that's why, it's always good to have a review. It could be every 5 years, it could be every 10 years, it could be whenever council wishes. I would say too, that there is another tool that's out there that's recently been provided, whereby municipalities can join and provide compensation information in a secured database. And essentially, we can do our own comparisons and our own analysis on a go-forward basis to ensure that, to Deputy Mayor Cabril's comments, maybe we aren't investing in a consultant anymore to do that. We can maybe do some of that work ourselves. So maybe I'll pause there.
Deputy Mayor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I think you kind of answered the question yourself, CAO Schmidt, with respect to where we were and where we are now. Where we are now is square one. And I think it's an opportunity for us to move forward. And basically, what you said about being able to compare and adjust internally would make sense. What's happened in the past is you've gotten COLA, but you haven't had a raise. That's the difficulty. That's what put staff behind the 8 ball. What I'm really suggesting is that moving forward, instead of creating a new pay band or pay grid and hiring that consultant, would be for us to look at the comparators that you've spoken of, and maybe possibly some of this information that might be obtained by using this tool that may come about, in order for us to then adjust the pay grid each year so that we do remain competitive. I'm not suggesting that we don't remain competitive. What I struggle with is a brand new pay grid on a regular, not necessarily a regular basis, but every 5 or 10 years. I think there has to be some mechanism put in place that recognizes tenure without necessarily creating a whole new pay grid where everybody gets to step back up through to the 5th pay band. And I certainly also understand that not everybody who comes to the table is going to start at the 1st pay band or the 5th pay band. It's going to be very dependent on what their qualifications are. And I understand that too. But it's the whole idea of reaching out, I guess, to a consultant. I mean, basically, if you think about it, we could have taken those 11 municipalities, researched them ourselves, and developed the pay grid on our own. So that's why I'm reluctant to see it just arbitrarily passed as part of the budget right now. I would still like to have further discussion on it and see what other options exist for us to move forward. Because if we adopt it in its present form, it will be for more than 1 year. And I think we're going to find ourselves in the same place down the road, because at the end of 5 years, we're going to have members of staff that are already going to be on the 5th pay band or whatever the top pay band is for 2 or 3 years. And they're going to be looking for some more financial benefit. And I think that financial benefit would likely be more appropriate if it came from an actual pay increase across the board to the non-union staff, which would mean that if there was a COLA next year and then an additional 1.5% to bring us in line with other municipalities, I'd rather see that type of approach. I see that as being far more transparent than going to a consultant and relying on them to tell us what we should be paying our staff. That's my point.
Councillor Fisher.
Through you to CAO Schmidt, with the tools that you mentioned for us internally to go look at other municipalities and compare ourselves, in your estimation, would we be able to accurately do what the consultant did for us previously?
CAO Schmidt or Director Radigan?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Maybe I can start. So through you to Councillor Fisher. So Councillor Fisher, I'd pause to say that the database, if you will, is you have to join. So it's not mandatory. And it just came into effect essentially the end of 2022. So the data that's in there, and I haven't looked at it to be quite honest with you. So, does it include all municipalities in Ontario? Likely not, right? And it may only include some of the bigger municipalities, and or it could be some of the smaller ones as well, because there is a lot of data that has to be updated into that tool. I would say that again, I understand some of the comments, but the consultant that performed the work does this for almost every municipality in Simcoe County. So this, again, it's common practice. Is it best practice? I get the deputy mayor's comments, and I would suggest that the grid is the grid, and at the end of the day, if you're looking for something to incentivize staff that are at their top rate, then we can look at whether or not that's some kind of a pay for performance type system, if you will, to be able to ensure that those individuals have the opportunity to continue to strive and do more, if you will. And at the end of the day, continue to ensure that they're providing best value for the corporation. So I think there are mechanisms there, and that's maybe a separate system, if you will, on top of this. But again, the pay grid system is very common in municipal government, and again, it's a fair and equitable system. I get that you have your opinion on it, and that's fine. I'm just saying that again, it is a fair and equitable system that most municipalities use across Ontario. So it's not something that's new or made up. It's very common practice, and I'm sure I can't speak for yourself, but I'm sure in your past life you've probably had a grid as well to some degree that showed various levels. Our unionized staff have a pay grid as well. Even though they're unionized, they still have a grid, and they just happen to negotiate their increase, if you will, after this term of their agreements up, which would be the end of 2023 or 2024. Sorry. So happy to answer any further questions.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I would just like to request for further information at some point, if we could look into how much that tool, obviously there's a membership fee. I'm assuming you don't just get to jump in there. Just for further idea of how much that costs. So we could look at that versus a consultant versus, it may be a more cost efficient way of gathering that information.
And on Councillor Alexander's point too, I think that if every municipality sits back and waits for others to join, it's not going to entice others to do so. I think that that's a great initiative. And if the more people that are involved, the more wholesome the information would be. So I don't know if that could be part and parcel with a notice of motion, or if that would just be at a different date. Was this an initiative being put forward by staff, or would this require a notice of motion from council?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, it is an item that was discussed at the Simcoe County CAO meetings, and I believe there was a cost. It was less than $5,000 to join the database. We're already a member of the database.
Good to know. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So just to be clear what the motion is on the table, we would still be approving the salary grid for this year because it's already incorporated in part of the budget. Deputy Mayor is nodding his head this way.
And thank you. I guess, however, by pulling that out of there, this would not be in place to my knowledge. So we could revamp that to make sure that there is because that was my question. What's in place then? How are we? What structure do we have?
Right. So I understood that we would move forward with this year's. It's already incorporated. It's already been looked at, but then further on. So over the course of the next year, we would be reviewing the salary grid as it stands, sort of ongoing.
Deputy Carell.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I guess the reality would be that I would suggest another 12-month period for the current pay grid, and that we explore other options going forward. And then come next budget, we'll be able to see whether or not there's something that's available to us to move forward with. So that would be my amendment would be that we continue with the pay grid as it is for this year, because it's already in there, and have a discussion. So in there for another 12 months for 2023, but during 2023, have an opportunity with staff to explore potential other options, including, and I think my motion actually spoke to that because we're talking about options. So if CEO Schmidt feels that this municipal tool might be one of those particular options, then I would hope that he would present that to us, or staff would present that to us as part of that process.
And I guess through to Clerk Ainsworth, would it then be just possible to have the non-union management salary grid for 2023 And that way it doesn't move forward, and then we can just have a notice of motion separately to have that information session or information report brought forward. Does that? No? Go ahead.
Thank you. I would suggest adding that 12-month period into the current paragraph, and then adding that a report be presented with alternative options for the development of a wage grid prior to the 2024 budget. That way there's no need for a notice of motion separately.
And prior to would indicate that that would be dealt with before we get budget, because I don't want all of this at the same time. So if we could have a time frame whereby council can digest that first and then move into budget after that, I would much appreciate that. All right. So all in favor of the amendment as read?
You read it?
Oh, sure.
The amendment would read that the motion now before council be amended as follows. That paragraph 3 be removed and replaced with, my apology. That a bylaw to approve the non-union management salary grid for a period of an additional period of 12 months be presented for consideration at the February 15th meeting at council for final approval, and that a report be presented with alternative options for the development of a wage grid prior to the 2024 budget.
All right, council as amended, all in favor? And that has carried. And now I get to read the giant as amended. So we have a mover and seconder. This is on there, and I can just read the motion. That the report from the Director of Finance regarding the revised proposed 2023-2024 budget and business plan dated February 15th be received, and that the proposed 2023 tax-based operating budget, proposed 2023 water operating budget, proposed 2023 wastewater operating budget, and proposed 2023 capital budget be approved, and that bylaw to improve the non-union / management salary grid for 12 months, is it perfect? Be presented for consideration at the February 15th, 2023 meeting of council for final approval, and
that a report be presented with alternative options for the development of a wage grid prior to the 2024 budget.
And that bylaw to approve the water and wastewater rates for the 2023 be presented for consideration at the February 15th, 2023 meeting of council for final approval. And that bylaw to improve the 2023 fees and charges study be presented for consideration at the February 15th, 2023 meeting of council for final approval. And that the 2023 tax rate bylaw be presented, including County of Education requisitions, as soon as the tax ratios have been approved by the County of Simcoe. Are there any further questions or discussion? All those in favor? And that has carried. Council, may I have a mover and seconder to receive the information reports, please? Councilors Garwood and Fisher, that the report items listed here and be received for information. Potential municipal surplus lands, OP 2023-001 and ZB 2023-002 Giffen, the 2023 Roma conference update, and contracts and service agreements, with the exception of number 1. All those in, are there any questions on or comments on the other 2, 3, or 4? And seeing none, all those in favor? And that has carried. And we will move back to, I need a mover and seconder to have the potential surplus lands information report back on the table so that we can refer that. Councilors Moore and Fisher. And Clerk Ainsworth, is there an amendment to that?
Thank you. I would recommend adding and that the report be referred to a closed session for further discussion relating to the identified properties.
And we would require a mover and seconder for that, or is that Councilors Alexander and Garwood? And council, in the amendment to have it forwarded to a subsequent meeting, all those in favor? And that has carried. And back to the main motion as amended to receive this and have the entire package move forward. Do you want to read that back out, or do we need to read it again? No. All those in favor? And that has carried. And verbal reports, development updates. I will turn to General Manager Ramdeo.
Good evening. I actually do not have anything new to update on either of the three or any of the three developments this evening. Status quo as per last week.
Thank you, GM Ramdale. I'll move on to Deputy Mayor Cabral for a county update.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I guess one of the things was a proclamation put out by the county for the hashtag It Starts program. And basically it is involving our local immigration partnership and certainly newcomers to our community and how to retain them and make them feel more invited here. Anyway, the hashtag It Starts with a Meal runs throughout March. And the County of Simcoe is leading a social media campaign promoting diversity and inclusion called hashtag It Starts. And food brings us all together from cultural backgrounds, I guess mainly because we all like to eat. And one of the things that they provided is this booklet, and I suspect you can get it from the County of Simcoe. And there are some potluck meals and whatnot in there, so something to look forward to in March. Another interesting thing that came out was a study that was completed, and the County of Simcoe paramedics, along with paramedics from 5 other paramedic services from across Ontario, participated in the double sequential external defibrillation for refractory VF. Anyway, basically in a nutshell, what this was, and it's actually pretty amazing that we participated in it, is what it is. It's a study that was done where they looked at the primary care that people who suffered cardiac arrests outside of a hospital setting, what their, I guess, condition and survivability was for them. And what they found out was that by giving them what they call a double defibrillation hit with the paddles, that the survivor rate went up dramatically. And so the county is adopting that with our paramedic services. And what they'll do is, if they do arrive at one, and just to give you some numbers, it was in Southern Ontario and it was about 1.8 million was the population. And in that population, there were over 4,000 cardiac arrest events that paramedics attended to. And that's where some of our stats came from. So basically what will happen is the paramedics will show up, and instead of hitting you once, they're going to hit you with 2 machines right after, one after the other. And that's because of ventricular fibrillation. Some of the folks that were getting that first hit were not totally coming out of that. I'm sure that Councillor Muir knows what I'm talking about. I can picture it, but it made sense. And one of the questions came up was, are they going to have to go out and buy a lot more machines so that every paramedic unit ambulance has 2? The truth is, no, they won't. They will send a second unit there. And the other life-saving grace is that most of the firefighters that attend with fire vehicles have one in there too. So generally speaking, there's a good chance there'll already be a second one on scene. I was also going to talk to you about the Simcoe Farmers Federation. Now I don't have to, but there was a homeless prevention funding allocation report was presented, and the funding from various streams, including federal, provincial, and municipal, with the total being just under $19 million, was targeted towards the cause for 2023/24. So they are spending money on the homeless. It's a sad state of affairs, but hopefully this money is going to be put to a good use, and we'll be able to give some of these homeless folks a place to stay. So that's pretty much up to speed.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you not mentioning my massive 20-10 loss on my amendment that I put forward. So thank you for not mentioning that, Deputy Cabral. I appreciate it. Much appreciated. Council, before I move on to our municipal updates, I did want to congratulate Councillor Garwood and Danielle on the arrival of Abel. So welcome to the new, probably not the newest Springwater member, but one of the most fresh. So congratulations. And Councillor, are there any other municipal updates? Councillor Thompson?
Just want to recognize the efforts of the extraordinary efforts of the Minisink CRA with a very successful mini-fest and their contribution to our community, and great thank you to them. And to recognize the Citizen of the Year, Dale Giffen, and the Youth of the Year, Nathan Vieira. What a wonderful weekend and what a wonderful event. Thank you.
Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just a few items I wanted to mention. The first one being, I wanted to thank the Anglican Church in Elmvale, which unfortunately has been closed for quite a few years, but last week the church donated the organ, the piano that was there, to the community hall in Elmvale. So I wanted to thank Brown's Moving and Storage for volunteering their time to come on out, and I roped Councillor Fisher into a morning of piano moving. So again, I appreciate our councillor from Ward 5 for that. A couple other items I wanted to mention. We're very excited that the Elmvale CRA will be kicking off once again February 21st in the Springwater Room. That is next week. So again, anyone that is interested, please come on out. We have lots of folks interested so far, so it's very exciting. And I will provide another update on the Elmvale Welcome to Elmvale sign, the new digital sign. Good news this time. Contractors were on site last week to move forward with the electrical works. The hydro pole has been installed and further electrical hookups are scheduled for this week. Staff project that the work on the sign to be completed in the month of February, and I will continue to provide updates. Thank you.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I just wanted to point out that there's a recent restaurant opening. Councillor Garwood and myself were there on Saturday. It's located on Queen Street West. For those of you that are familiar with the other well-known establishment there, the Palace Tavern, it's immediately to the east of it. And it's recently opened up. It's called Rumi's Resto and Chocolate Bar, and they have a very extensive menu. So I would encourage anybody who wants to give it a try to come on out. A very friendly atmosphere, and I think you will likely enjoy the fare that's there. It's not the run of the mill, it's fairly extensive menu. So it's nice to meet those folks.
Thank you. Any other updates? Does there happen to be a picture of the piano moving for our next issue of the Council Connects?
It is in the Springwater News today.
I'm really excited to find one of those.
I'm looking pretty good in that picture.
All right. I will move on now to notices of motion. This would be a notice of motion presented by Councillor Fisher, and can I ask for your seconder, please? Councillor Moore and Councillor Fisher, I will turn over to you to read your motion.
Thank you. Whereas the communication strategies are important to ensure residents and stakeholders are kept informed, and whereas council feels that it would be prudent to review alternate forms of communication, be it therefore resolved that staff be directed to provide a report outlining the township's current communication strategies and their costs, and further that the report include options for alternate forms of print, social, and other types of media for council's consideration. Thank you.
Councillor, are there any questions or comments on Councillor Fisher's notice of motion? Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just in regards to Councillor Fisher's motion, I also might like to add, and this is maybe more of a comment, that I think it would be definitely worthwhile to survey residents on their desired communication methods as well moving forward. I believe it's something that many of us heard over the past summer as we were out connecting with residents, and this will either outline what we're doing is effective or needs to be reviewed. So I think, especially when it comes to communication, we should be communicating with our residents and asking their opinion as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I just wanted to ask if, I guess I should direct this through you to CO Schmidt. As I recall, there was a staff report that came back a year or two ago, could have been even 3 years ago, but I'm suspecting within the last couple of years, dealing specifically with print media that was presented to council. I'm wondering if that might be able to be pulled and provided to members of council that have some familiarity with what's gone on in the past.
I'm seeing a head nod, yes. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Counselor Fisher?
Just further to Councillor Garwood's point, yeah, actually surveying residents is actually a smart way to go about it. I do like that. I think, you know, in the age of social media, we're connecting really differently, and it's important that the municipality evolve with that. We really need to diversify the way we communicate with people. I mean, I think we all can agree that print media is in decline. Not totally gone, but it is in decline, and we need to make sure we're getting our message out to residents, and also too not really supporting a monopoly with one single avenue for communication. So I do agree with surveying people.
Anything further, council? All those in favor? And that has carried. And at this time, I will pass my piece of paper over to, and the chair, over to Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. This is a notice of motion regarding an appointment to top aggregate producing municipalities in Ontario. And it's in respect of Mayor Coughlin and presented by her. May I have a seconder to get this on the floor? Councillor Moore. Motion, whereas TAPMO is requesting representation from members to fill vacancies on the executive committee. Therefore, be it resolved that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Springwater appoint Mayor Jennifer Coughlin to the TAPMO Executive Committee for the remainder of the term ending at the 2023 TAPMO Annual General Meeting held virtually during the AMO Conference, August the 20th through to the 23rd, 2023. And that council assume all costs associated with the role of Mayor Coughlin on the TAPMO Executive Committee. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor. Well, actually, what I'd like to do is just put my name out there as an alternate in case the mayor isn't able to attend, that I would be willing to attend on her behalf.
Is that an amendment you'd like to make? Because I would support that.
Okay.
Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Deputy Cabral. I'm happy at our first meeting to find out if they do support. I don't know if they do. I guess we could put an amendment and should they, whichever, but I can look into it and get back to you. Or like I said, if you wanted to come with me or go instead of me, I am really excited about it. I think that it's going to be great, but again, I really don't fully know what we're getting into, but thank you for the support on that. And definitely if there's an alternate.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I don't think we need to include it in the motion, to be quite honest. If there's opportunity and you're happy to attend, I'm sure that the rest of council's okay with that. I am. All those in favor? And carried. Pass the chair back to the mayor.
All right. At this time, I'm going to ask Councillor, are there any items for future consideration? Or sorry, I guess are there any additional notices of motion? And not seeing any items for future consideration. Not seeing any. Oh, the big one. May I have a mover and seconder for the approval of the bylaws? Deputy Cabral, Councillor Moore. That bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. The 2023-015 amend bylaw 2022-057 Agricultural Advisory Committee terms of reference. 2023-016 amend committee appointments by bylaw 2022-093. 2022 to 2026 term. The 2023-017 fees and bylaw, 2022-018 building bylaw and repeal bylaw, 2018-033, 2023-019 non-unionized management salary grid as amended, 2023 to -020 water regulation and rating bylaw, 2023-021 wastewater regulation and rating bylaw, 2023-022 road naming Springwater Developments Corporation, 2023-023, appointment of the Elmvale BIA Board of Management for the 2022 to 2026 term, and 5000-366 ZB 2022-014 done. All those in favor? And that has carried. May I have a mover and seconder for the confirmation bylaw? Garwood and Alexander, that bylaw 2023-024 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on February 15th, 2023, listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? And that has carried. And finally, our adjournment. May I have a mover and seconder to adjourn? Deputy Cabral, Councillor Moore, that the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 8:20 PM to meet again in regular meeting on March 1st, 2023 at 6:30 PM. All those in favor? And that has carried.